G'day folks, Uncle Knuckleheads here. Now look, unfortunately today, well, it's a bit of a sad day, but also a very exciting one. Let me explain. I've decided that my shop's getting a revamp because it just doesn't work. Basically, it's quite pathetic and virtually non-existent. And the first thing to go, which is why I'm a little sad today, is my trusty old workbench that has served me very well over the past 12 years or so. Poor old girl, she doesn't deserve this. Oh well, looks like she's off to the Workbench retirement village. Because I work in a very small single car garage with very limited space, whenever I have to use my Mitre saw, I have to drag it off this shelf and then place it on top of the bench to make my cuts. And then, when I'm done, I have to lump it all the way back to the shelf again. The saw's heavy and really annoying to take from place to place. And as you can see, it takes up valuable real estate on that shelf. Basically, it does my head in. So the idea, if all goes to plan, is to make a multifunctional workbench that incorporates my Mitre saw on a flip top type of thingy that enables me to store the saw underneath the bench when not in use, and then flip it back on top when I need to use it, and then incorporate my table saw, which is currently tacked onto the end of the bench. Let's do it. Oakley dokley, first things first, on go the very handy homemade Mitre saw outfeed wings, which are simply screwed to the outside of the Mitre saw. And I do have plans to these down below if you're interested in making a set for yourself. Okay, the first job off the rank is to cut your pieces for the base and the top of the bench. Basically, the bench is going to be 2400 long by 1200 wide, which in Imperial is 8 feet by 4 feet. Once these are cut, we'll get onto assembling the frames, starting with the bottom frame. Now, if you miss a step, don't panic, as I'll have plans available down below in both metric and Imperial. If you find yourself having to cut off just a whisker off a piece of wood, try this. Lower the blade down fully and then gently press the piece you want to cut up against it. That will slightly push the blade across by just a fraction. Then just simply lift the blade up and make the cut. Beautiful. Great tip, Knuckleheads! What I'm doing here is setting up a square corner bracket, which is going to help me with holding and screwing the sides together squarely. I'm also purposely building at waist height to take the pressure off my dodgy back and wonky knees. It's always a good idea to check from time to time that everything is nice and square, and you can do that by doing a diagonal check with your tape measure. When both measurements read the same, your project is square and you're good to go. Sorry about the interruption folks, but I'd like to ask you for a quick favour. First of all, I hope you're enjoying what you're watching so far, and if you, like me, enjoy making stuff and want to see more woodworky type tips, tricks and projects just like this one, and maybe even the odd pathetic eye-rolling dad joke thrown in for good measure, please hit that subscribe button and don't forget to click the bell. Okay, good stuff. Okay, the next step is to make the legs, which is a really simple process. Now look, there's no hard and fast rule when it comes to doing this, but what I like to do is to screw two pieces of timber together to form one solid post, which is a really strong joint and it looks really good. And you'll finish up with something looking like this. Once you've gone ahead and made those legs, screw and bolt those to the lower frame and you're good to go. Ready for the next step. And as you can see here, I'm using a stop block, which is a really good idea when making repeated cuts. Now, when it comes to checking out the rebate on the legs, I like to set up the depth cutting guide on my Mitre saw. Just be aware that not all Mitre saws have this feature. But if yours does, use it as you'll finish up with a really clean and accurate rebate. Now, if you don't have this feature, don't panic, as you can basically do the same thing with your circular saw and the chisel. Now on the bottom of the frame, I'm attaching some screw-on bumpers which will keep the frame slightly off the ground, which should help keep the workbench flat and stable, just in case there are any lumps or bumps on the concrete floor. Now it's really important that you attach the legs nice and square to the frame, which is why I am clamping a builder's square to the side of the leg prior to drilling any holes for the bolts. Now a temporary screw is also driven in to stop the legs from moving during the drilling process for the bolts. Once those bolts are bolted on, you have yourself a very strong joint, which is important for a workbench as you don't want it to wobble as you work on it. What I'm making here are the posts for the flip top portion of the workbench, which are a little different to the regular posts or legs, as it includes a rebate to house the plywood support for the flip top mechanism. Hopefully it works. Fingers crossed. Once again, the depth guide on the Mitre saw is very handy for doing this procedure. Just be aware that making multiple cuts takes a little while and creates a lot of constant noise. So hopefully the neighbours don't get too shirty with me. How's this? I know it's a bit ironic considering that I make a lot of stuff out of wood, but I've just bought myself a pet termite. True story, a pet termite. And I'm thinking about calling him Clint. Clint eats wood. Seriously, they're getting worse with each video. To make sure that the top of the workbench is nice and flat, constantly check those post heights with a straight edge of some description to make sure that everything lines up nice and straight. Beautiful. Now I just want to break this large sheet of form ply into a more manageable size using my trusty old CSG 1000 circular saw guide so that I can run it through my table saw a little bit easier. Now these two pieces will make up the side supports for the flip top mechanism, and once cut and dry fitted, I'll put these aside to be installed a little later. Now as you can see, the frame is basically done. We've got a spot for the Mitre saw and a spot for the table saw. Now all we need to do is to put down the floor before we do anything else.
Beautiful.
Woo!
That's unreal. It's pretty. Mate, you could have put a hair between that and the cut. Well done, mate. That's fantastic.
Thanks, mate.
No worries, mate.
Legend. Now, from previous videos, you may have noticed that I'm not a big fan of exposed end grain. It just looks a little rough and ready. So, whenever possible, I like to do a return 45-degree angle, which will tidy up that pesky exposed end grain. Yep, that looks better. Nice. Now, as with all table saws, the rear rail, once extended, will extend past the bench. So we need to check out a portion of the top frame to allow for the rail to run through, which is easily done with your circular saw. Just set it to the correct depth and away you go. Too easy? Lemon squeezy. Next on the agenda, after a quick cup of tea, is to set up the framework for the floor for the table saw. Now, once you've worked out the height of your saw, and make sure you take into account the thickness of the bench top, which isn't yet installed, start attaching the front of the frame to the posts using pocket hole joinery. That way you won't have any visible screws showing, which will give you a cleaner look as well as a very strong connection. To stop the piece of wood that we are pocket holing to the posts from moving around, I'm using these very handy pipe clamps, which I absolutely love. You can attach these to any length of pipe you like, which is really handy when clamping together wide pieces of work like this workbench. Once tight, nothing is going to move that stick of wood, which is what you are after when using pocket hole screws. And I'll link to the pocket hole jig and the pipe clamps down below if you're interested in taking a look. And after another one of those sneaky little return 45-degree angles are nailed on, it's time to set about and nail on the support pieces for the base of the table saw stand. Now, using an offcut from the saw base is an easy way to set up the correct height for the support pieces. With those supports in place, drop in the floor and we are good to go for the next step, which is making the frame to box in the table saw. Now, this is a good tip. It's really important that the frame surrounding the table saw is perfectly flat. So prior to screwing the cross members in position, place a straight edge spanning both sides of the bench. Clamp that securely down and then clamp the cross members to the straight edge prior to screwing in place, which will ensure that the top of the frame and the cross members are perfectly flat. Great tip, knackers! Tell you what, this better fit. Up she goes. Oh, so far so good. Oh, absolutely spot on. Woo. Now that is a relief. Now, as you can see, down here we have a lot of open space. So to utilise that and to help keep things nice and tidy, I think what this needs is a big sliding drawer. Now check this out. What an absolute little ripper. Really wide, really deep, with plenty of room for all of my power tools. Now if you'd like to see how I made this, that'll be in the plans, which I'll link to down below, so make sure you check those out. Love it. Okay, time to round this portion of the job up by installing the bench top that surrounds the table saw by securing to the frame using angle brackets. Just make sure that you clamp the bench top to the frame before attaching those angle brackets. Awesome. And there she is, folks. The Mitre saw is in. I haven't screwed it down yet, so it's still a little bit, you know, how's your father? But everything moves nicely, which is a really good sign. But I think I might need to finesse it just a whisker to get that sitting nice and flat to the bench top. Alrighty, next on the agenda is that pesky flip top Mitre saw thingy. Let's have a crack at that. Let's go. That's right.
It's a good unit, mate.
Right.
Good stuff.
Legend.
You get solid.
Woo. Thanks, mate. Good on ya.
No worries, mate.
Okay, the next step is to cut out the section of the bench top where the saw is going to sit. Now, take your time doing this as you don't want to mess it up. With that job done, you now want to cut out the slot for the pipe that is going to support the flip top using a router. The blocks, carefully stuck down with heavy duty double-sided tape, will help guide the router. Again, take your time as this step is critical to getting everything level. Since I unfortunately don't have a drill press, I had to freehand this bit, which was, to be honest, a little nerve-wracking. But you have to drill a hole for the pipe as close as humanly possible to the edge of the flip top platform support, and then repeat that on the opposite side of the flip top. Since I don't have a second set of hands, clamping on a couple of temporary supports makes setting up the platform to insert the rod a lot easier. So here we go, folks, it's time. Will this flip? Now, to be honest, this whole calculation thingy, well, it's been a bit tricky. So, fingers crossed, it all goes to plan. Now, the Mitre saw sits on top of this platform, and the platform's got a flip to the underside of the workbench. Let's give it a go. pull the platform out and then rotate. Houston, we have a problem. It looks like the back of the platform is hitting the face of that backboard. Not ideal, but I think there should be an easy fix. Bit of a slight miscalculation. That slot needs to go back 25 millimeters. I should have realised that. Oh well, stop whinging, start routering. Okay, take 2. Hopefully this one works. Pull the platform out. That's better. And then flip the platform so the saw goes beneath the workbench. Just like that. And then slide this back in place. That is awesome. Then all we need to do is to put a top on that box and then add a few bits and bobs, some stoppers to that backboard there, which will lock everything in place. I like it. How good. Once screwed on, these stoppers will secure the platform in place in both orientations. To take off the sharp edge on the bench top, run a chamfer around the edge of the cutout and then make sure you do the same thing to the top of the platform before you install it so they all match. With washers used as spacers in place, drop in the platform and then insert the pipe. To accommodate for longer screws, attach extra backing blocks which will provide more grab for those screws when attaching the Mitre saw. Then just simply screw down the top of the platform. Too easy. Not bad. Not bad at all. To keep the flip-top platform solid in either orientation, attaching these catches should do the trick nicely. Alrighty, here we go folks. If this doesn't work, I'm going to pack everything up and go on a big holiday. Alrighty, fold the saw up, undo our catches, and now flip, fingers crossed. So far so good. And then just slide it back. How good's that? Alrighty, turn it back over. And there you have it. What an absolute ripper. Hang on, I've just done myself out of a good holiday. What an idiot. And yes, before anybody asks the question, you can add a vise to this bench, which I'll be doing a bit later on. Now, if you want to see more workbench videos, just like this one, make sure you check out my workbench video playlist, which will be popping up over there. And don't forget, I'll leave a link to the plans for this project down below, so do yourself a favour and check those out. Alrighty, after all that, I think I need a cup of tea. So till next time, be good, be safe, and I'm out of here. Cheers.